Okay, I am personally pretty burned out on Civ at this point. I do feel a need to finish making this video series, and there's not that much left to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a playlist of Ashwin's greatest hits, and I'm going to talk about some general concepts. And this is not going to be as polished as the rest of the videos that I've done, which I think for some of the viewers is going to be a positive, because I don't think a lot of you really enjoyed staring at PowerPoint slides. But let me give a brief overview of things I want to talk about. So the last stuff that really needs to be talked about, the stuff that I actually do think I have some insights on that needs to be expressed, is talking about Landship War, Tank War, and then a little bit about Stealth War, although Stealth War is like pretty brain dead, so that can be like 2 minutes of talking. This background, by the way, is a Tank War that I had with the Hawkman, where in retrospect, like, we were just totally dead, but I think Hawks was kind of pushing in the wrong place. Anyway, so Landship War. What's going on with Landship War? Landships are 60 strength, 4 movement units with a 50% bonus versus land units. They're really, really strong. They kill basically everything in the era, and they almost always two-shot cav, good, well promoed landships against badly promoted cavs, one-shot cavs. So the landship, compared to all the other stuff around it, is incredibly powerful, incredibly destructive unit. How do I deploy landships properly as compared to, say, Cavs and Arty? So if you remember when we were talking about Cavs and Arty, the idea behind Cav and Arty was that I would spread them out, that I would kind of make this horizontal stretch, and I would widen the front to get maximum artillery killing power until everything was dead, and then I could push forward behind that. The opposite is true with landships. This is the most important part of the video. Listen up. You don't need to get wide with landships. If you have road access touching enemy tiles, every landship can slam from those roads, right? So fighting with landships is about getting deep. It's not about getting wide. It's about getting deep. If Hawks had a road like here, every single landship would be able to slam into that tile and then retreat from that tile, right? And this is the important thing. Every unit in Civ has a concept of exposure. Every unit, in order to attack, needs to expose itself to counterattack. But the later the game goes, the more that this fundamental mechanic can become abused and ignored. And with landships is where it starts really getting big, because a 4-movement landship can cycle from, if it's, let's say, 4 tiles away from the front, which is already quite far, it's away out of sight, it can walk 4 tiles on roads, that's 1.3 move, do a slam, that's 2.3 move, and then walk another, 2 2/3 move. 1 2/3 move, which is another 5 move away, right? This is actually, I think I did it wrong. I think it's 2 2/3 moves. Whatever. I don't have a math degree, so I can do arithmetic. The point is, landships can attack and be safe as long as they're fighting on their own roads. So all you need to do to landship fight properly is general to make contact with enemy, and then fight on your own roads and fade your landships back. And this is where the power of Autocracy Elite Forces shows as well, because a landship, most units need to take a turn to retreat from the front in order to start healing. But the landship can attack and retreat on its own roads on the same turn. So this means shoving your landships deep into enemy territory, like we're doing here, sacrifices all of the relative advantage you have. It pushes you deep into enemy territory. A good defending player, these are numbers to remember, somebody who is an incredible defender, the best defensive performances of all time, are 2-to-1 trades. You know what the best offensive performances of all time are? They're 1-to-1 trades. The ideal attacker utilizes hammer advantage, combat strength advantage, whatever, to neutralize the defender's advantage, right? Attacking is about trading decently, and applying your hammer advantage. Trading well is a pipe dream. You can't trade well into enemy roads. But what you can do is you can fight with just as much strength as a defender. So the fundamental movements of a tank fight are not about shoving into enemy territory, claiming tiles, because kill power on your own rows is so incredibly high. The times when you can shove like a landship deep into enemy territory, you're not going to get instantly killed, and then those units healed up, are the times you've already won. And this is why tank war, landship wars, when they fight like this, they tend to be you don't lose a tank war suddenly. You don't have this concordance where suddenly where units are getting destroyed. What actually happens is you're fighting for a long time and your units are getting more and more yellow, and your opponent slams you, and the opponent slams you, and you start looking for a full health unit, and it's gone. And then you say, oh shit, that's when you're dead. Let me find a video where Achilles beats me up. Here we go. So Achilles is the master of Landship War. Nobody does it like him, right? And you can see, okay, people are doing it like him, but I think a lot of it's because he was doing it. So you can see here, what's Achilles doing? He generals in. He's using this mountain really intelligently as an anchor. This is like part of why Achilles is so good. He generals in, and now, hey, look, this brain dead loser Ashwin, now he's fighting off of his own roads. And what Achilles can do now with all of his units, right, is he can just bring them all up and he can slam on his own roads. And then he's going to retreat back. He's going to heal with elite forces. And in 5 turns, when all of his units have healed up and all of mine haven't, I'm going to be dead. I also think this is why I'm against high general access. I think high general access makes the game, especially at this stage, pretty brain dead. Landships are already kind of brain dead units. And once you have the inclusion of high general access, there's nothing standing in their way. This is just a general phenomenon that as movement gets higher, as kill power gets higher, the obstruction for like a unit to be the best mono unit gets lower. Look, I'm so brain dead. Look at this anti-tank rifle. I'm like, sometimes I think I'm washed, and then I look at this and I'm like, oh, I'm not washed. I was just always this bad. Anyway, don't stand on enemy tiles, please. So yeah, all these guys are gonna die, and then let's tab forward. What's gonna happen is Achilles is gonna deploy all of his landships into all of this, because he doesn't even need me to stand on these tiles. If I stand on these tiles, these are all tiles that he can touch and then run away from, and he's gonna heal every turn. Like, this is a disaster. I've already lost on this screenshot. I mean, Achilles is very good. Anyway, so what do you do with landships? With landships, you want to stay on your own roads. You want to be not only do you want to be on your own roads, you want to be hiding from enemy roads, right? Tiles touching enemy roads are all shred tiles. That's the important thing. Okay, I general here. You're like, yay, I generaled, right? But he's still got contact points, and he's actually still going to just general me off again. So it's like, what did you do? And now you can see exactly this phenomenon I was describing, where all I have is red and yellow units. You can hit every swap. This is a thing that I really want to like emphasize. You can hit every swap and still lose your war. This happens really often, because just because you're swapping doesn't mean you're healing. Doesn't, like, these clashes tend to be pure mass clashes, as long as the attacker's generaling well. These tend to be pure mass clashes where just landships are slamming landships and landships are healing. That's pretty much landship war. I'll reiterate for people who want the reiteration. You stand always on your own roads. You avoid touching enemy roads. You create a contact, normally by settling and generaling in, so that your roads touch tiles that opponents have to stand on, and then your landships slam in, and they run away. And this just, look at him go. He slams and he runs away. He slams and he runs away. And then when he heals, suddenly he has created more units than I have. Because look at me, I'm not healing. I don't have the mass to heal, and I'm standing on the wrong tiles. And this whole perspective of war comes from Achilles. Look, I'm dead. It's already happened. And it's not because I'm failing swaps. It's because I don't have units left to stand on tiles. But yeah, have to credit Achilles. Achilles is the guy who, like, kind of, there was a really long period where Achilles would just beat the shit out of me every single game, constantly. And he still does it, of course. But I started to understand why he was doing it. Okay. Yeah, so that's Landship War. Okay. this is so yeah. Landship war. It's really determined by generals and mass. It's not that hard. Generals, mass, combat bonuses. So let's move into the second kind of area here. Let's talk about tank war. What's the difference once tanks show up? Two big differences occur once tanks show up. So the first thing is that tanks are better units than landships. That's not as impactful as it may seem, because the tanks are going to be fighting other tanks. It's not like you change their relative strength. You can beat up some landships if you have gold advantage. The 5 move is good at like cycling, but again, in my vision of war, you're typically cycling on roaded tiles anyway. And going from having your 12 move on your own roads to your 15 move on your own roads, it's honestly not that impactful. It's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal, but it's not that big of a deal. Like this world where tank pushes are suddenly much, much better than landship pushes only exists when you're pushing deep off your roads, and that's just not a situation that I'm often in. No, the reason tanks are good, the reason that combined arms is, in my opinion, the most valuable war tech in Weavy is because of the anti-tank gun. So let's look at stats really quickly. An anti-tank rifle is 30 strength. That means an anti-tank rifle fights a landship at about 90 strength, of ignoring any other combat bonuses. The landship is already 90 strength. So in your head, you should think, okay, an anti-tank rifle is kind of like it fights even with a landship. And obviously it gets shredded by arty, it gets hit by flank, right? An anti-tank rifle is not a super useful unit. I wouldn't go around spamming these. An anti-tank gun, on the other hand, is an incredible unit. Why is that? It's because it's got 50 base strength. 50 is a lot more than 30, and it's getting that 200% modifier against tanks. So a typical tank in Weavy, a tank is 75 strength. With the 50% combat modifier, that jumps you up to about like 107.5. I think that's right. 107.5 strength. But a anti-tank gun fights at 150 strength, and that's without like any anti-tank promo. So this means that an anti-tank gun is actually just an incredible unit at fighting tanks, which are, most of what armies are composed of. And an anti-tank gun, it changes the shape of the battlefield fundamentally. Anti-tank guns love rough terrain. They love lightning warfare. They love jamming themselves into positions which create threats. What does this mean? So a typical anti-tank gun usage, why don't I start spamming anti-tank guns here? I think I told Sarah to start making some, whatever. So a typical anti-tank gun usage, let me tab forward, I'm sure I'll find it. Did I grade for Pentagon upgrades? Is to shove it into a position which is like touching the enemy lines and basically daring the opponent, saying, hey, I have an anti-tank gun here. What are you going to do about it? And remember, there are very few units which trade well into an anti-tank gun. There are, you've got your heavy artillery, they're okay, but they don't do to anti-tank guns the thing they're doing to cities. And every shot that's getting used on an anti-tank gun is one that's not getting used on a tank or on a landship. And then once you've shoved your anti-tank gun in and they've exhausted shots to clear it, that's when your tanks are now free to maneuver. So the combination of the anti-tank gun and units to exploit the relative positioning advantage given by the anti-tank gun is incredible. So my preferred ratio of tanks to anti-tank guns is like 2 tanks to every AT gun. I think actually something like I think like 3 to 8 is the ratio I would actually go for, but this is like so nitpicky at this point, it's like whatever. The other thing that's important about the anti-tank gun is that the anti-tank gun is a slamming unit. You want to force trades with it. It's not a unit that you can easily force trades with. So what you want to be doing is you want to be shoving the anti-tank gun like into attacking tanks, making the good trade, saying, hey, you have to fight this, because if you don't fight this, it's going to slam you, and then exploiting. And that's I think that's good war play, and I think it's also really good for game balance. That's my personal opinion, because what happens is the anti-tank guns are not defensive units. They don't exploit roads anywhere near as well as tanks do. Tanks, remember, you can get basically all of your tank slams off in your own territory on your own roads. So the anti-tank gun is not as effective when it's on your own roads. The anti-tank gun has to be very, very carefully managed at best because it has to finish off units. Otherwise, you're down tiles, which you need to maneuver with. And an anti-tank gun is not good at just sitting there and getting shot, because nothing is good at just sitting there and getting shot. It can get pinged down by enemy heavy arty, or even in like on flat, it can get zocked and flanked and destroyed. What an anti-tank gun is good for is creating terrain, creating openings, creating possible breaches. This is something that I've typically not been that good at. But if you remember that Achilles game where I was Mexico, Achilles was using his anti-tank rifles to create flanks, to anchor the ends of his lines, because that's where the most trading happens. That's where the anti-tank rifle would like to be. And the same thing occurs with the anti-tank gun. The anti-tank gun likes to be like on the edges of flanks. It likes to be kind of shoving in, forcing trades. It's a very, very good unit if you're deploying it properly, which is to say, using the fact that it's going to die for your advantage. This is a very similar theory to like the use of longswords and muskets in medieval war, but I think the game is just like fundamentally worse when anti-tank guns aren't that good, because you end up in this pure tank slam nonsense. Fighting monotank armies, it's fun for a while, but it gets boring. Okay, so once you hit tank time, anti-tank guns, so where are good places for an anti-tank gun to go? So like an anti-tank gun would like to go right here, right? Because that anchors my line, and it actually like to slam. It's very easy for an anti-tank gun to finish off a landship. An anti-tank gun would like to go, I'll pan down. I think I start deploying some later. Anti-tank guns like to go like on the edges. Like when you see mountains, right? This is also just like a good fundamental concept to think about. When you see mountains naturally create arcs for you. You see at my arc, it's like this. Do you see? I'm naturally anchoring myself to the mountains, right? And then it's here, this mountain, it's hard to see this. It's hard to explain this. But this mountain, it's creating a break in Bing's ability to defend from me. And that's why I'm like pushing over the top. That's what's making it useful. So this is this terrain is now very important suddenly. So yeah, anti-tank guns, they like to shove in, they like to slam tanks. Remember, these are units with a good trade and a bad trade. You want to maximize their amount of good trades. And they want to force opponents to deal with them so that you can unlock your other units, your heavy arty. There's some good examples which are sadly lost to time of like Glossin, who, I love Glossin. He can be brain dead sometimes. Nobody's out here claiming that Glossin can't be one of the most brain dead Civ players of all time when he puts his mind to it. But there's some great there are some great examples where Glossin, shoves in the anti-tank guns, creates a corridor, creates a line for his tanks to slam, for his anti-tanks for his heavy arty to move in. This is like really, really good play. I think they're complicated to use, and I think they're very good. You can't just go around spamming them. That like pure anti-tank guns will lose to pretty much any other army composition, because that's the thing is you don't have to trade with the anti-tank gun most of the time. It needs to be enabling something. So I think they're good design, and I'm happy with them. Okay, am I finally going to slam in an anti-tank gun now that I've suicided all my tanks? Possible. Unlikely, but possible. Okay, I think this is what as Sarah's passed me up anti-tank rifles. So yeah, tank anti-tank war. It's good. It's good. It's important. It's fun. So let me just talk about the kind of post anti-tank gun meta. So in Weavy mod, which is the only mod I care about, the next tools that you have access to, there's the heavy arty. The heavy arty are probably overtuned in their current iteration, but apparently this is necessary. The heavy arty are really keeping down bombers, which I'm fine with, because I think bomber gameplay is disgusting and degenerate. I think every unit in Civ has a notion of exposure, and bombers and fighters completely ignore this notion of exposure. You can't punish someone for building, for attacking with their bomber. And the other thing is that, of course, the interaction is just really bad. It's really bad gameplay. Whoever has one more fighter has definitively stalemated the opponent's amount of bombers, no matter how many there are, because you can just defend, and you can't you can just kill bombers that as they come in, and the access to the combination of sortie and elite forces, you basically can't sweep out sortie elite forces autocracy triplanes. It's just not happening. So it's just not worth it to invest in bombers when fighters are like this, and it would require a fundamental game rework probably to make this whole interaction acceptable, and we all know how fundamental game reworks tend to go. So that's not getting fixed. So heavy arty, very useful at killing cities. Bombers, I'm just not that into pre-stealth bomber bombers. They're just not that good. They're not that good, and I think if they were good, they would probably not be fun. So after that, what are your options? Well, there's the rocket artillery, and so tanks love artillery. Well, the biggest enemy of the tank is the city, because tanks off their own roads are just so bad compared to tanks on their own roads. So good artillery units are a tank's best friend. So tanks love rocket artillery. Then on the other side, there's there's modern armors. Modern armors are just truly incredible units. Modern armors diff the hell out of everything that gets put in front of them. If you ever get the chance, these are really good to try. So the two main tech branches that you should be seeing on current Weavy, at least by design, are we going rocket arty or are we going modern armor? There's this third branch, which is nuclear missiles. I don't think nuclear missiles are good in this mod, mostly because I don't think piety is very good. If piety were good, I think nukes would be strong. That's my personal opinion. Bazookas and nukes seem to be basically an unplayable meme at this point, and that makes me very unhappy all the time. What else is there? Okay, finally, we should talk about stealth bombers. So, stealth bomber warfare is the most brain dead of all brain dead late game warfare, because stealth war is very, very simple. It's you have your stealth, you keep them, you abandon as many frontline cities as you can, and every time you see an enemy unit that doesn't have insane bonuses versus stealth, you shoot it. And you keep doing this until no units are there, or no units are visible. And then you try to set up a city capture with generals. And every time a city gets captured during stealth war, like during parity stealth war where both players have a lot of units, that city is getting recaptured. There's no way around it. There's too much kill power, and it's too easy to hide a tank to do a recap. So stealth war rapidly devolves into recapture, and winning a stealth war involves double capturing or building a nuke or something. It's just not. It's a huge amount of value trading. So stealth war, again, very, very simple. Shoot everything that doesn't have bonuses versus stealth. If a city you shoot cities down to 0. If one of your cities is in danger, you just make sure you have a recap set up on it. And you just back and forth stealth war until somebody runs out of stuff. It's not. As long as you're not actively suiciding units by recapping badly or by keeping stealth in cities which are getting captured, you can't lose a stealth war. It's just a transitional phase into something else which actually has some push power. And finally there are GDR, which I find GDR fun, although they're probably even more brain dead. But yeah, this game just gets more and more brain dead the later you go. The only the last really interesting interactions in my opinion are at combined arms. That's because of the strength of the anti-tank gun. After that you just kind of get into post-atomic smash. It's not that great. This was a really, really off-the-cuff video. If there are any questions, just let me know. There are a lot of these videos on my YouTube. Some of them have some really, really good fights. Some of them have some really, really bad ones. Like, I don't know. I tend to be a pretty conservative. I tend to be a pretty safe player. So when I'm on push, I'm just trying to push very safely. Okay, here, this one's a good example. I think in this one, I push really well with anti-tank guns. All right. Okay, so you can see my anti-tank guns up at the top, right? What do I do with them? Yeah, like this is some pretty good like anti-tank gun mass. So what do? I see these anti-tank guns. I just bypass them. They're not that good when they're standing there, right? What they have to be like in important positions basically, and they have to be slamming. So let's see what I do with them once Hoy rejoins. Like lightning warfare on anti-tank guns is really good. Oh, the other thing I have forgotten to mention, which is also very, very important, is that helicopters are really good. Helicopters are probably busted. So helicopters, they can only really be defeated by air cover, because if you slam a helicopter with a mobile SAM, the mobile SAM becomes stuck, and then it can be punished by enemy tanks. Units that get stuck, they need to be kind of immortal in order to be effective. So heli's really good, especially in Weevy's quite mountainous terrain. I don't know, like if I were gonna sum up this like late game war stuff as quickly as possible, it would be like stay on your own roads, heal your units, don't over push, right? It's a duel format. You're not under any pressure. You just trade well. That's what the game is about, and just try to maximize your good trades. Like war is nothing I can say to you about war is going to be that complex, because I am not good enough to have complex thoughts. Everything I say is fundamentally simple, because the understandings I have are fundamentally simple. And as long as you also have these fundamental and simple understandings, you can do all the stuff that I've ever done.